Hi, it's Brenda. It's March 25th, 2020. And since most of us are stuck at home with the coronavirus threat outside of our houses, I thought we would try something different. Maybe we're missing connecting with each other. And I heard some other authors were reading parts of their books to their audience to sort of regain that connection and show a little personal side of themselves. So here I am in my home office, one of probably my favorite place in the house, next to the kitchen. I love the kitchen. And I thought I would read from my book, The Quiet Rise of Introverts, 8 Practices for Living and Loving in a Noisy World. It came out in 2017. I'm going to start kind of in the beginning and share a little bit about where I grew up and who I grew up with in my home and in my family. So I will read a little bit and then talk a little bit at the end and maybe pose some questions for you guys to respond and let me know a little bit about you. So here we go. This is page 23. It says, I experienced the bliss of living in a small agriculturally based town in the middle of Michigan. My high school class numbered fewer than 250 students. My dad owned the local shoe store, and many of my friends' parents grew up in this same small town. Everybody knew each other. My family and I lived in the country on a dirt road. It was quiet in our little house, nestled between a creek and fields that farmers rotated annually between soybeans and corn. The small school and community afforded us a sense of belonging without having to compete for everything. There were socioeconomic differences among the townspeople, but overall, the playing field seemed level. Everyone played their parts and worked together to support the community. Hindsight tells me one reason for this cohesiveness, the fact that everyone knew where you lived, who you were related to, and where you worked. Oh, there was one reason for this cohesiveness. Our proximity kept everyone in check. It was damn difficult to exist in anonymity. Harmony was the name of the game, and a sharing of resources kept things running smoothly. Granted, there were only a handful of stores for everyone to shop. Fewer resources could incite competition, but mostly it offered a chance to catch up with your neighbor if you ran into them at the bank or meat market. The experience was pleasant rather than frustrating. So many people lived in a small, quiet neighborhood or out in the rural areas like I did, that we welcomed a chance run-in with someone we knew. We weren't constantly burdened with crowds, traffic, long lines, or job scarcity. I personally had a wonderful balance of quiet country living and active social experiences. At home in our small farmhouse, there was an absence of hustle and bustle. There was a cat or two stretched out on the porch, breezes rustling through the leaves of walnut and pear trees, little to no traffic on our dirt road, comforting aromas coming from the oven, and glorious solitude in my upstairs corner bedroom. When in town or at school activities, I could be found hanging out in the basement of my friends' homes, watching movies, sharing stories, or playing cards with anywhere from 1 to 15 people. As teens, my friends and I spent a lot of time cruising in our cars looking for, and often finding, boys and parties. There were school functions like dances and football games too. I was never a big fan of group sleepovers, but I endured and even enjoyed them, knowing I'd be home in my own peaceful bedroom the next night. But even in this idyllic atmosphere, I was fed a steady diet of television shows and movies that presented city living and a brash lifestyle as the way to go. I thought all of the possibilities and fulfilling careers would be found in bigger, more alive cities. Surely the people in the city were more interesting, intellectual, and exciting. My sleepy little town could not keep me. By the time I graduated from high school, I was convinced my small community was holding me back. So, as an introvert, I think the small town was pretty awesome. Although, as I look back, I always think, wow, I was pretty social as a kid and a teenager. I had a lot of friends. We were always hanging out in groups, not always groups, a lot of 1 or 2 friends, getting together, a lot of sleepovers with my close girlfriends. We laughed. We went to dances with lots of people. We went to parties. I wasn't a wallflower. I wasn't afraid to do that. I think it was just a really comfortable atmosphere. Later in life, I lived in bigger cities where there was more competition. There was more traffic, more scarcity of resources. I don't know. I think that requirement to be bold and outgoing and aggressive was more daunting to me than the social aspect of it. I have a little bit more that I wanted to share with you about my family growing up, and I think this kind of gives a little more context to my nature and what I write about and just my beginnings. This section is called Competition at Home. There was another factor motivating me to move out of my hometown. Although I did not feel competition among my classmates, friends, or coworkers during my years employed by Kentucky Fried Chicken and my dad's shoe store, I did feel significant competition and inferiority at home. My mom, dad, and sister were all extroverts, although I'm sure my parents' outgoing personalities subconsciously affected my view of my nature. It was my younger sister's strong and vocal personality and others' responses to it that most influenced my self-perception. Namely, that it was better to be a boisterous, center of attention type than a quiet, sensitive, remain on the sidelines type. Let's see. That's it. My sister was born with a willingness to be the proverbial squeaky wheel. And that worked for her. She garnered the enviable and fun nicknames of Imp, Character, and Pistol. It was hard not to notice her. It was also hard to get noticed when around her. As a tender-hearted, read in her room, play with dolls kind of child, I had to really stretch myself to stand out. As teenagers, my sister and I both had a lot of friends, but she played team sports, was on the homecoming court, and was never without a boyfriend. I did not lack for social activities. I was a pom-pom girl and had a circle of 6 or more close girlfriends. I felt safe in these groups. I had the occasional short-term boyfriend. I was not a standout, but I was happy, except when compared to my sister. So, just for an update, my sister and I, for the last many years, have been really close. We did fight and compete a lot as kids, and we were great at digging at each other. But we've become more of a team as we got older and had to help with the care of our mother. So it's different now. But back then, I did have the feeling that she was better even, or that she had what I needed. And I'm just curious what some of you grew up with and how that influenced how you feel about your personality, how that influenced the development of your temperament. And personality and temperament are different in my book. Temperament and nature are more like something you're born with and that you work with. Personality kind of seems more malleable and something that develops in a situation. Although I'm starting to think that even our introvertedness or extrovertedness is more circumstantial than innate. That's just over the years with my research and writing is kind of what I've come to. Anyway, so there's a little bit about me. Let me know what your background is, and maybe we can connect on this time of isolation. Hope you're well. I look forward to hearing from you.